Morning. I'm just trying to explain a little bit about the in-depthness of energy and letting go of cycles, and it's hard to know where to start and if this is even going to help anyone, or if it's even, it just makes me sound a bit bizarre, but someone might be able to relate. Right, basically I've just been, it's just I had such a weird weekend. My sister came over and my dad had videoed me from when I was a baby, and it's really rare in the 90s to have anybody on video, and I've seen my mum doing my nappy and my dad and all my dad's friends sitting around in the 90s without a sofa, like in the front room, and just the ambience and the energy coming off the videos from the past. It was like, now I've got a strange memory. I remember when I was 1.5, like I remember saying bubble when I was little, and then my dad went, oh, she said bubble, and then it just cuts and things like that. But watching these videos, I was like, I remember my dad filming them, and you're almost tripping out thinking, am I imagining this? But I do have a way of connecting into the videos, and I was just like there. And just remember that as you change and as you grow, like sometimes I've labelled a lot of my past into like a box, but then when you see it, and then I was hearing my mum and dad's voice and they sound so different, and there was, but I just seen it for what it was, and I had so much love, and like it was just very heartwarming just to see all the years of my childhood and see it a bit clearer than just that things were a bit black and white. You know, my mum, my dad, everybody's made mistakes, and he is my saviour in life. My dad, well, I've got everybody I meet us my saviours, but you know, like it's just really grounded me into realising that I will have these videos forever, and it's awful. There's videos of me when I'm 11, 12, 14 and like really young, and it's just so weird to see yourself and hear yourself. All right, yeah, I've got my tummy pierced. And then at the very end of the video is my partner that I'm with now. And we couldn't believe that he was in the video. Right at the end, we're at my dad's, and we're both 14, and we've been going out for like 2 months. And I'm like, all right, egg. And he's like, all right. And honestly, he looks so good. It was just so nostalgic. I haven't ever like seen it in years, and it was just like, there you are, Jake. And right at the end of the video, I say, see you later, egg, because we used to call him Egghead. And then he goes, see you later, and it just cuts, and I'm like, you didn't think 20 years on, this was in 2006, you know, the videos have got the dates, and I'm like, you didn't think 20 years on we'd be still saying see you later? It's just, yeah, it was just so needed. And I was just graced to have the opportunity to, staring at yourself when you're 1.5, like this generation that's born now will have videos of themselves, but I'm sure anyone over 35 will know what I mean. It's very rare to have full-on videos of yourself, and it was just great. It was, but then I realised heavily that I'd been neglecting. I've got too many animals at times, like I've got a gecko upstairs for my son, and we've got 3 guinea pigs, and I was given a tortoise 10 years ago, and he's always been a wild tortoise. He started off in a cage. I've said this in the video yesterday. Basically, over the years, he ended up being in the garden mainly, and I just thought he was invincible. He always hibernates at the same time. He's been humping everything in the garden all year. He eats well. He's just constantly tries to bite toes. Now, but yeah, right. He messed up his hibernation this year, and due to me just being slack and not watching everything, he's passed away from hibernation, and after hibernation, and I'm trying to say it's this, that, and this, that, but it's literally weighing on my soul that it was a lack of basic care in many directions, maybe with UV, with calcium powder, And to be honest with you, I did actually basically forget that he was awake, because I'm not used to him being awake in January. And I noticed that he'd gone back into sleep, and we rang him inside, and I'd noticed he'd gone into sleep. And then I just thought he's gone into hibernation. And my sister was here on the weekend, and she hasn't been here for ages, and she hasn't seen Dave for years and years and years. And sorry, Dave used to be her tortoise, and I was given, he was 13 when he's passed, but he was given to me when he was 3. But she came over on the weekend, and she was like, I think he might be dead. He looks very dead. And I was like, no, he's gone into a hibernation. And it was that later on that evening that my partner did sort of say, I don't think Dave looks okay at all. And I started to warm him up in front of the fire. And then I did notice that I just thought he will wake up, he he needs to just, And then I noticed his eyes were dried out, and I would put him in a bath again, and oh yeah, I've still been thinking he's alive in the last couple of days, like just because his leg moved, but I think he's just shriveled. When you read into it, tortoises can be so like complicated, like whether they're asleep in hibernation but basically I just don't know enough about tortoises. And I remember being at an animal centre before I had a tortoise, and them saying, oh, because lots of people had the tortoises in the 70s and didn't look after them properly. And he was saying, these are exotic animals, and if you're going to have a tortoise, make sure you're doing the right things for your tortoise. And I don't think I did the right things for the tortoise, and it's really hard, like I was saying on the weekend, that, he's going to outlive me. They can live to 50 or 100, and now from my fact, and I was blaming myself fully. I was absolutely bawling, and thankfully my children, my partner said, it's not just your fault, we all should have looked after him better. But and it is strange. I'm going to go into a bit of a crazy one right now, that when I've entered different dimensions in different parts of my life, and Spirit told me that Dave was given to me as like an omen to protect me in the house. And for reasons that I don't need to explain right now, I suppose, I've always believed he was a reincarnated Nancy or something, right? I've just told when I was in a very high dimensional state that the tortoise is not, and he has always acted like Nancy. I don't know that, I'm not going to just like put Nancy's in boxes, but he's very aggressive, and he's just really like, just wants to bite you and that, right? So he was a very funny tortoise. But what I'm trying to point out now is that just before we woke up, I had a kid-free weekend, and I ended up watching stuff on YouTube about, first of all, it was just like watching the fact that all the soldiers were on speed and pre-vitamin, whatever it's called, pre-vita and that, and like all this, like, I was just learning that they were all on base and speed and blah blah, just like watching informational programs. Then I ended up watching a program about all these Nancy wives in HD and all their faces, and I was just like, my partner was like, really, is this any good for anybody? Like, why are you watching this? Why are you? And then at the end, I seen a face of someone's wife that I've seen in a previous video before, and she's really stuck. And I thought, ooh, energy, like, what does she have to say? I don't know, right? So it's just a bit of a head one about the past. And then I noticed Dave in the garden. That's when I noticed Dave like the last week in the garden, and he'd obviously come up from hibernation. It's been freezing, and I just wondered why, why. But I didn't take him to a vet. I've done what I would normally do, bring him inside. But then I didn't do exactly what I normally do when he comes out of hibernation, because usually it's March, and I just, like I said, right, like my landlord was coming over, there was this, that and the other, right, and it was just, like even the night I think he was dying, I was dancing and exercising, and I didn't quite click that maybe I hadn't done the right things for him, and I just thought he was going to be all right. So it was just such a shock. But it was weird that I thought he was a link with Nancy energy, or that energy, and then there he was dead. No, not yeah, and then I'm trying to not feel like a bad person, but it obviously has banged me into a state of, as far as I'm aware, but I could just be trying to tell myself that to make myself feel better. But Dave, right, Dave says he had a good life, and he experienced so much, and he had my garden is the best garden. He had wild weeds all day, and had so many places to go. And Herman tortoises are very sturdy, and they are good animals to live outside. But I didn't do the right things for him. Like, I can say, oh yeah, but you know, I could have hitched up a proper UV light in the garage and put it outside for him and stuff, just to make sure he was getting the exact things. So I suppose this is a word of warning as well, is that if you do have a tortoise or a reptile, tortoises are really hard to know if they're ill or not, and they can have an illness for years. And he did look like he had like white stuff on his shell for years, and that might have been the problem that killed him in the end. But it's not going to rest on me easy, and I'm glad that all my kids are old enough to remember Dave. I think my youngest is nearly 6, and we'll always remember having a tortoise. And it's going to be like I said, he used to just chase us around and bite our toes, but I would miss him so much in the garden, because I put him down one end of the garden. My garden is so long. I put him down one end of the garden, and he'd come and find me, and then he'd be there right next to you, and he'd be just trying to bite you a little bit. But you'd never let him, because he's like not fast enough, but he's quite fast. And I used to just dance around. He'd be constantly trying to bite me, and like, but I'm just going to miss him so much. And it's settling, watching a prehistoric animal. It was part of the dinosaurs. I'd watch him at grass level, and just watch him eating. And he had a little tongue and eyelashes and a soft neck. And and he's gone. And then my partner's is like, yeah, should we get another tortoise? I'm like, we're never ever going to get another tortoise. If my children want to get a tortoise when they're older, that's up to them. But just be, and in a way, it's my ego that's sad that I haven't got a tortoise anymore, because I used to just love the fact that I had a tortoise. And it's a real lesson learned, is that I don't even know if the lesson learned was like with these Nancy wives. Obviously, what was happening, they didn't see New World News, they didn't see the camps, and it's like, you can neglect care if you're not careful. And it just felt like I was going through the energy, but I also feel like I had to go through the energy to release it. And it's like these old loops, and I'm just trying to release and forgive and give grace to all situations of the past. That, and I've said in a previous video, you can't judge now on the past. And you know, you could say that they made the camp, I think everything just got out of control more and more and more, and no one knew exactly what was going on. And it's the same as me with this tortoise. And obviously tortoises aren't bloody human as important, but it depends on your perspective of what's important at the time. And these people were living in big houses, and they had good lives, and they were good wives, and it just makes me feel sick, you know. But I stuck in this head loop of energy, and I'm going to let it go. I'm letting it go, and I'm not going to try and feel like a bad person about Dave. We've got to bury him, and I've got to move on. And it is imprinted on me, and it has changed at the moment. How I'm sorry, nibbling. But I will move forwards, and I've apologised and I've cried, and everyone has their time. Everyone has their time, and Dave had his time. And whether I was the one that helped orchestrate his time, it was meant to be the way it is. And I'm sorry if I'm talking about the bloody tortoise, like, but no. Another thing, I haven't experienced death close to me, and it scares the shit out of me, how to react and how your perspective of death could send you into different directions. And my grandparents getting older, and my dad's getting older, my mum's getting older, everyone's getting older, I'm getting older, and it's like, Just got to take care of everything around you. And just, yeah. But it is what it is. And you can never change. But, you know, and no one's perfect. And if I'm going to sit here and say, of course I was kind, but I wasn't perfect. And I never will be. And so was the past. Do you know what I mean? And it all has its place. And it's not easy, I suppose, for anyone to come into a life and then that is what their life represented, in if it represented evil. But nothing is ever one way, you know. Never. Much love and namaste. Cheers and bye. And have a good day. The sun's finally shining. Okay. Cheers. Gam Ganapataye Namaha. I release and let go of what no longer serves me.